Sure, we can go another 5 or 10, whatever questions you have. I'm good.
Okay, thanks. Um, in 2019, the Seattle Public Schools established a department specifically focused on African American male achievement. I know you're not running for the school board, you're running for mayor, but I'm curious if you have some thoughts on what are the biggest factors that will make a difference in closing the achievement gap between Black boys and boys of other races.
You know, I've been doing work in our African American community for 40 years in Seattle, belong to virtually every African American group in town. A lot of us focus on education of our youth, especially our Black boys. I've seen very little incremental progress over those 40 years of closing that achievement gap, making sure our kids graduate from high school, which is the first step onto a life of success and prosperity. But around our state, 50% of our kids of color drop out of high school before they reach high school. And so this is not good. Where are they going to go without a high school degree? And most likely only reading at 8th or 9th grade level and doing math at that level. Where are they going to go? And so I've been pushing and pushing and pushing to make sure our African American community resets the bar to not only graduate from high school, that should be a given, but to go and graduate from a 2 or 4-year college institution. You need a college degree in this day and age to compete with the marketplace out there of other jobs. The last 10 years, I've been working in mainland China with study abroad programs for the Chinese students. So I round up dozens and hundreds of kids, high schoolers and university students, and they come and they perform very well in our high schools and our colleges here in the States. They go to some of the best universities in the country. But these kids have a drive, they have a vision, they have an expectation put on them by their parents and by themselves that they're going to be number one in their class. See, so education is really emphasized as their pathway to success. And so I was telling some of our African American community leaders the other day, I said, hey, when all of the Asian kids come and go to our higher institutions of learning, and all the Indian kids from the country of India come and go to our higher institution of learning, upon graduation, they're taking all the high-tech jobs. They're taking the jobs that are paying $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. And now with the huge migration of immigrants coming across our southern border, and even though $15 minimum wage is in effect in most major cities, employers are going to find a way to pay them under the table, $6 an hour, $7 an hour. And where does that leave our Black and our brown kids, without a high school degree and especially without a college degree? So we need to do a better job of getting our kids into the vocational trades, electricians and plumbers and carpenters and craftsmen. Those are great jobs, great union jobs that are 6-figure incomes. It requires some work. It only requires a high school education also. So graduate from high school and then get into one of the trade schools and learn a craft that you can have for the next 40 years of your working life. And that's the best way that we can finally get up and out of this and close that disparity gap that we have, this achievement gap. So I tell our groups the same thing. We honor a half dozen kids a year who make it on to college, but what about the 1,000 other kids who didn't make it? What happens to them? We don't know. We don't have any tracking of what happens to them. Most likely they end up on the street, or they end up gang banging somewhere, or they end up incarcerated if they're boys. And this is just a travesty of the Black community. So we can do better. And if I was a school board member, I would be voicing that same kind of opinion. And as a mayor who's an African-American male positive role model, I will be explaining the same kind of conversation to our communities of color. This is our way to success in our lives and to generational wealth. We've got to be educated. We've got to stay out of the criminal justice system. We've got to be able to put together families and raise them responsibly. Do those 3 things and you're going to have a life of prosperity and success.
I've heard that other countries, I think like Japan and Germany in particular, have great models of, even at age like 15, 16, making opportunities to go into trade school, get vocational training, and particularly for men. I mean, we all know that most plumbers, most construction workers, most electricians are men. And so if we can connect maybe that gap between when boys lose interest in school and it becomes quite bothersome and annoying for them when they're 14, 15, 16, and then if they were to get to college and maybe get that hands-on skills, maybe they would thrive from then on. But there's like 3 or 4 years of a gap there.
Right. Yeah. We got to help them make that transition from that point to that point. You know, but it can be done and it needs to be done. So, you know, I was looking at our jobs report for the U.S. economy last month, and it was disastrous. Only 250,000 jobs created, and help wanted signs up all over the country. I was telling our African American community, African American unemployment rate should be 0. It should be 0. We should all have a job or two, any job of our picking around the country. But how many of us are going to go out there and do that? Especially when the government is providing stimulus checks that are 80% of your normal income. And why go through the trouble of putting yourself together, driving through a commute, parking, going to a job, when you can just sit home and collect 80% of what you normally would? See, so that's a detriment, I think, to so many of our young people right now that I'm not in favor of. I really want to teach people how to fish, and they can feed themselves for a lifetime instead of continually giving them a fish every 2 weeks or every month or every stimulus check, whatever it's going to be. We just become too dependent on that, and it takes away our drive and our ambition to get out there and do so much more.
I see.